Well, College of Eastern Idaho viewers, welcome. What a pleasure to have you today. It is just a great opportunity to have Amy Brumfield with us today. She's got she's doing a number of things for the college, and it's really a pleasure. She's an instructor, and we're working on accreditation together. And she's actually got a pretty broad background in grants. So we have a litany of topics for her today. So thank you for joining us, Amy.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what a great conversation we're going to have. We just got off a fascinating topic about accreditation, and maybe we'll get to that in a bit. But you know, a good way to start is why don't you give us a little background?
Okay, so my background, like Rick said, is a little diverse for education. So, but I'll start with the education first. So I've been a teacher at CEI in our English department since 2018, and but to back up from there, like I've always been fascinated by higher education. So I left high school, got a bachelor's at ISU, loved it. Then life happened, and my husband and I pursued. My husband went to medical school. We did a whole bunch of other things. We started a business in this community. Well, we joined a business in this community and then grew it. We grew community care in this community from 2 clinics to 6. And then we did a whole bunch of other things. And in that process, I decided I really wanted to come back to the things that I love. So I came back to higher education, got a master's, taught for a few years, found a research question that I loved. So I joined the doctoral program, got a doctorate at ISU. So I'm 3 times regionally educated. And then when the community college here opened, I wanted to teach here. I love the community college whole thing. I love that we are open a mission. I love that we scope across workforce, across academics. I love the whole broad range. So when we were here, I just jumped at the opportunity to be here. So, and then past teaching, they asked if I would start looking at accreditation, which sounds boring to most people, but I'm going to show you it's fun later, and some grants, which also way fun. So my experience even at CEI is broad, but in this community, it's been pretty broad too.
You know, one of the things I appreciate, you in your family, you're the real Dr. Brumfield, which is kind of wonderful. And for those who don't know, the other Dr. Brumfield is a physician, but we like to think of PhDs as real doctors.
Absolutely, yeah. I make him.
You know, let's start kind of with your background, because you're an entrepreneur, and it's interesting because entrepreneurs think differently than a lot of people do. And let's explore that for a minute, because I think one of the areas we're working on, but one of the areas I think CEI could excel in, and I think it's because of our region, is entrepreneurship. So,
for sure, I
don't know if you would know why you're different than other people, because that's a big risk. So, why is entrepreneurship interesting and starting something new? And then let's talk a little bit about the college. But how about you? Why are you doing crazy stuff like starting your own business?
Yeah, that one, to be an entrepreneur and to want to own a business by itself, just owning a business altogether is a scary proposition compared to being an employee of a business. It means you have a wide range of responsibilities, but really have a wide range of risk, that you may not get paid this month, that you may go negative, that you have to watch out for all the people who are working for you. It's a really interesting, terrifying thing to do. But when my husband was going through medical school, he definitely wanted to be a doctor. Okay, a doctor is a really it's a pretty good job. It's a pretty good job. Okay, but he also wanted. Yeah, he wanted to be an entrepreneur that owned a business that could grow. He wanted to see a model that could expand. So when we looked for practices, we actually looked for a business that we could be an owner in, and rather than just run a practice, which in many ways is kind of CEI is on the same cusp as medicine. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But when we did that, it was 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, medicine was very much centered around a doctor. everybody came to their appointments. The appointments were scheduled Monday through Thursday. You had Thursday afternoon and Fridays off. The patients accommodated to a doctor's schedule. And as my husband was going through school, the field started to change and realized that it should be centered around the patient rather than the doctor, and that the patient's time was as valuable as the doctor's time, and that the schedules should start to accommodate for that kind of thing. So when you look at community care, it was actually a revolutionary medical idea at the time that it was instigated. And so as we took that entrepreneurial risk, we could see that there was a great market for, hey, if you take yourself out of the center of the existence and put your clients as the center, that you could be very successful. But that it would take a lot of sacrifice, and you'd have to work a lot of weekends, and you'd work holidays, and you'd work long hours, and you would do things that most people didn't want to do. But we could see that met the needs of our community, and we could see that it met our needs to do something that was different and unique. And so we banded together with our partners and created a business that then grew and then grew and then grew, because we were right that people actually preferred the schedule to meet their own schedule, that they'd rather not skip work in order to go to a doctor's appointment or take their kids out of school to go to a doctor's appointment. So that entrepreneurial risk was calculated but hard. It took a lot of guts, and it took a lot of thought for all of the people involved to do it. And it took about a decade really to get it fully established, and like a lot of work. But that as we look at it, it changed the community that we live in. And now that's a really normal thing for patients to assume that their doctor will see them when it's not on everything, but in lots of things. They'll accommodate.
So the idea whose time has come, in a lot of respects, a community college for us is an idea whose time has come. And so when you think about us, what do you think a skill set would be if we are going to train entrepreneurs? And we're working on that in the business area, in credit. There's kind of a track there, but additionally in workforce. There is a track for those skill sets. So what do you think those valuable skill sets would be for someone starting their own business?
Someone starting it would just certainly be to chase education in all kinds of ways. That you need to be able to do different technical skills for sure. Even small ones like understanding Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word, or big ones like becoming a nurse and passing the NCLEX, or like depending on where you want to go, you need some technical background that shows that you're good at the job that you want to do. And then past there, I always hope that students will, instead of trying to just use the classes to make themselves stronger, like if you're good at math, that you just want to get better at math. Like, you should look at education as a way to go, hey, this is the one time in my life where people will show me how to fix the weak parts strategically. That if you're a weak writer, that you take more classes in writing, even though you don't want to do that as a job, but that it gets you better to be more flexible. Because for the most of your life, you will be in the profession you have. You're going to get better at your profession. But the only way to really like leapfrog over people in your profession is to be really flexible other ways, and to take all the things that you're bad at and go, how do I strengthen that and get rid of that so that the things I'm really strong in shine through? So I always hope that our programs invite students to go kind of across our whole range and say, hey, definitely take some English classes, but you also should look at welding, and you should look at our electrical engineering, and you should look at different ways that a biologist solves problems or an accountant solves problems, and just kind of look at them as a problem solving thing. For the most part, I'd say that of all the interesting people that I know in my life, none of them picked this in their first year of college. They never said, hey, I'm going to be the accreditation chair at a community college in years. Nobody picked this future, but everybody I knew that has a really interesting life and the job they really like just set themselves up to be curious their whole life, and set themselves up to be a lifelong learner who just takes risks whenever they're presented to them. And that I think our college is really good at. We have a wide range that you can experiment with who you are.
That is wonderful. I know you and Troy are around a lot of entrepreneurs, so you tend to connect together. So are there a couple of attributes that you think as you look at your colleagues and associates that have gone different directions in entrepreneurship. What are they like?
What are they like? They're usually highly driven. They don't like to be bored.
Yes.
So whenever life is boring, they tend to find something else to make it less boring. And
Sure.
business is a good avenue for them to make sure they're never bored. But they're also just open to a whole range of people and a whole range of experiences. So if I were like to sum it up, they take every good opportunity. If they find an interesting person, they'll chase down a conversation with them to find out why they're interesting. Or if they see a business model that they don't understand, they dive to find out why it works. They're just endlessly curious and always willing to just go chase down the thing that makes that they want to know. And so if anything of an entrepreneur is just really that openness to see that the world might be different if you just pushed on it a little bit.
Yeah, or to make the world different. So really, I think what you're talking to is a willingness to learn and maybe less risk adverse than many people would be. So they're willing to try things and sometimes put a lot on the line to move forward. But okay, so let's talk for just a moment. You're a classroom teacher for faculty for us, and have done that for a number of years. What is your how would you reflect on our students and the kind of student that we've gotten and the things that you're attempting to have them learn?
Probably the thing that I notice the most about our students is just how driven they are to change themselves. They see the goals that they want and they go straight after them. I can say in all the time I've taught here, I think I've had one single tiny discipline problem once with somebody who was in a really bad mood. He was usually in a really good mood. But for the most part, they're here to learn. They are annoyed with anything that distracts them from the learning. Like they tend to know that they want to be smarter and more interesting and more curious, and they work really hard at the things they have. The ones who get derailed usually get derailed more by life than because anything in the classes was too hard for them. Sometimes life is a little too hard, but they love that they can see potential in themselves. And I love talking to them about their different experiences across our campus, because how many different professors really do work to help them get to where they want to go. It's pretty awesome. I like our students a lot. It's been a pleasure.
And I think that's our hallmark. And we've got a great set of faculty here. And these are practitioners, teachers of their discipline. And some are in research, which is a good thing, not a whole lot, but some. And research is an important element of academics. But really, we're talking about skill in teaching and learning. So a master's level, when we're talking about gen ed, or clearly certified if it's CTE. So good practitioners of their discipline, but maybe even more importantly, great purveyors of knowledge.
For sure. And happy to be at a place that's changing. Like almost all of your staff that I've talked to came here because they saw the opportunity to shape education, and what fun it is to be at the beginning of an institution. Well, yeah, take over an institution, extend its legacy. Yeah.
Well, sure. So again, at maybe a smaller level, kind of risk adverse or willing to risk some things to come, but be able to shape the future a bit.
Yeah.
So
you have entrepreneurial educators.
We do. Oh, there's just no question about it. That's why it's so important, especially in career technical. We have a lot of our faculty who reach out. They've got really strong business connections, and they look for internships and ask for money and talk about the institution. They help to send students that have a skill set maybe that fits a business. They know the business community, try to match up that skill of a student who's just graduated with what that employer would need. Those are all important aspects.
When I didn't think I had any idea how extensive CEI's offerings were in workforce until I came here, and to realize like that we have 18,000 educational opportunities. I mean, students who take education from us a year in workforce. Like I would never have predicted that we had such a wide impact on the community, and how many, even from a business owner's point of view, I was like, oh, I did not know how extensive we did all of those things, and just how impressive it is that we have such a broad range.
You know, it is, and I'm going to shamelessly say, you might know this, but if you don't, it's interesting. We're way bigger than CWI, and they're in the middle of Treasure Valley. So that is amazing that from a workforce perspective. Yeah, so I like to bring that up regularly.
For sure.
So you have got a really interesting background in grants. Let's talk about that a little bit. And I think our viewers know, but we are looking for a full-time grant writer. We're kind of at the place where we need to do that. You've plugged the hole beautifully, and we'll probably depend on you anyway, even if we get a full grant writer, because that's a significant job. But first of all, tick off a few of the grants that you have helped with or actually written, and I think we've got one pending that's pretty big. So tick a few of those off for us.
So we've done several foundational grants for like the local foundations, like the CHC Foundation. We've written to help get better equipment for the labs and to be able to project all of the things all at once. We've done a bunch of different things where essentially our educators come to us and go, hey, if we had this, we can imagine a much better future for our students. So we've done some of those. I did a small one with Don Barber that actually got COVID funding to help clean the campus better so that people would be less worried about COVID, and that we were working hard to make sure that she had all the resources that she needed. And then I did one with workforce with Michelle Holt and Debbie Borick in particular, who slaved on that one. There would be a $2 million grant from the Department of Labor that could radically change how we interact, particularly with students, helping them to be educated, of course, that's always our primary goal, but also to sculpt all the ways that we could re-educate them as the market changes, that we could become more flexible and more able to reach out to students who are employed in a job and say, hey, we have another job training that's available. You can come right back and be, worth $10,000 more in this position and trade these up. So that Department of Labor grant, if we got it, would be really helping strengthen our workforce, making it a lot more fluid and a lot more, just a little more visionary, even though we're doing pretty good without it. But $2 million would definitely help us become a little more visionary as we go along.
That's an understatement, Amy.
Yeah, it is. And grant writing is fun because it's such an imaginary, creative exercise. And like, okay, what would make the world better? Okay, if we had a little more capital, what could we do with it? What could we show that, we could make the lives of our community a lot richer and a lot better and a lot more clear? And then we start looking, well, who else is interested in helping our students get to there? Like, who else is invested in making sure that they have the same success that we can see for them? So grant writing is always just kind of pulling all the collaborators together to go, hey, you have resources, I have students, I have educators, I got this. Let's pull them all into one big package and see how we can actually do all the things. And it's pretty amazing. We've had some really successful ones, like Anne Marie Peters has fearlessly done different organizational changes through the grants that she's gotten, and she's going to continue to reshape our campus that way. Like, we have a lot of people chasing lots. Like I don't know that like Mike in Student Affairs, Mike Walker in Student Affairs, has chased down C Campus to help us with childcare, and different people across this whole campus really work to enrich this community that way.
Sure. So grants are really good because a lot of times it's one-time money. We really like to see grants that would go into longer term, but a lot of times that isn't case. What do you think some of the key elements are in a successful grant? So what is a grant reader? Oh, by the way, the other side of the coin, maybe we'll get to that right after this, because you are a grantor, whatever you're on a board and you read proposals. So we're going to pick your brain on both sides. So as a writer of a grant, what do you want to put in a grant to make it interesting and fundable?
Yeah, fundable. To make it fundable, it's always how concrete is it? How concrete is the plan? Can we lay out step by step, person by person, credential by credential, dollar by dollar, how that money, when it gets handed to us, will be invested in human capital, physical capital, that it's going to be. It's not only a dream of something, but it's fundable. That if you took your money and gave it to us, that we would shepherd it, invest it, and grow it. That's what makes a grant application fundable. What makes them pick our project over whether they pick somebody else's project? Because almost everybody has a really great project. Not everybody, but okay, lots of people have a really great project. How they get to pick our project over other projects is the story we tell about the people that it will change. And can we tell the story well enough to say, hey, we know who the people are that will be, their lives will be better by it, and we will make sure it gets to them, and we will track how well they do in the long term. And we promise them essentially a fairy tale with a happy ending that says, hey, give your money to us and we will magically turn it into a whole bunch of better lives. And the magic is really laid out in a whole bunch of boring charts. That's kind of grants. It's the happy story backed up by a whole lot of evidence created by smart people.
So there's a compelling argument with a startup college that we don't have the same experience, but we're in a region that hasn't been served by a 2-year comprehensive community college, and literally we are open to anyone. We have that open access, so we would reach those kind of students who would benefit greatly from us. And I think you're saying those kinds of stories are important in a grant application.
Well, for sure. And like to look at like CEI's current community, like COVID aside, if we kind of set the pandemic aside and how much it pushed us into a virtual world, that most students tend to do better if they come in person to class, and that putting a campus 60 miles away from you means many people can't go. That putting it right in the heart of our largest community serves such a large need for people. It makes it so much more accessible that they can still manage their kids at home if they're not on the road 2 extra hours a day, or that they can come get help when they need it if it's close. And that even just our proximity says that we can do great things in the world. But we have a really strong entrepreneurial community to draw from. So pulling all those things into this one place made such great sense.
So your other life is on the other side of grants. So you're on a board and you've got a block of money, which is wonderful. Talk a little bit about the board and what do you think about? What does a board do? What's their purpose? And when you see grants, what do you look for on the funding side?
So I have the pleasure of being one of the founding members of the Mountain View Charity Board. Mountain View Charity, as you might guess from its name, its major donor is Mountain View Hospital, and they set aside about $200,000 a year to improve the community. And we try to improve it in 3 different ways. We fund scholarships, we fund community good projects, not events, but we fund the projects they want to do. And then we offer medical assistance to people who can't quite get to healthcare, and we provide a bridge into those. So we look for those 3 things, and we do that on behalf of the donors, and say, okay, we want to do the, and we have a couple other things. Right now, we're doing a large campaign called Feeding the Heroes. So we have a large group of people who are feeding medical staff who are battling COVID. We have a couple other things going, but in each of those things, we as a board have to take into account the donors' wishes and why they established the foundation, why the money is granted to us. And then we go search the community for the people that would most meet their needs and say, okay, the people who donated this money dreamed of improving the world in this way. Who's going to do it? And essentially, it's the same really thing that the federal government does and the state government does. They say, hey, they don't usually go directly do all the things themselves. They look for people who are doing the great projects and hand them capital. So as we look at applications, we look for people who understand our mission, understand that that's the goal we have, and that they tell us how they're going to meet our goal. And we look for people who will be accountable and say that they'll invest our money well, and that they're actually going to do the things that they do. And then we look for people who will help us share the happy stories that they create from it, so that they give it back to us. And as we look at all their applications, we look at those things, kind of the same thing we said. Do you tell a good story? Do you have a good pile of evidence that says that you'll be good at it? But we look at all that as an investment in this community, and then all of it gives exponential returns if we just give it. And it is, I have to say, one of the best jobs. But it's not really a job, it's a volunteer position. But my volunteer position is I get to spend someone else's money to make the world better, and reading all the applications, totally worth that.
You know, what a wonderful reaching out to the community as a hospital and looking at that. And clearly we're a big fan of scholarships, of course. And you know, that's important. So we're really pleased that the Mountain View charity exists, and we've had some connection with it already, and it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, for sure. We've enjoyed. We've been funding students since 2008 at iTech, and then at CEI, and at ISU both. So yeah, we've really gotten to see a lot of great stories from your students long before I got to even teach here. So I felt like I knew a little bit about them all before I came. It's very nice.
Yeah, no, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
So let's shift again, and let's talk a little bit about accreditation. So you and I had a discussion, I don't know, it was a year ago, and you know, not everybody is cut out for accreditation. It's kind of a unique niche, but you know, for staff would be interested in this for a couple of reasons, but quite frankly, accreditation is the key to a successful institution, and without it, we wouldn't be an institution. So do you want to just take a minute, and you and Lee have been working diligently with our accreditation, but what does accreditation do, and why is it important?
One of the easiest ways to think of accreditation is essentially it's like a physical exam from a doctor. That every year, in Lee's case, he does some little reports each month, and every year, and then every 7 years, we have a very, very thorough physical exam that looks at everything from our governance to our academic programs to our cultural cohesion to our finances, everything that there is an accrediting body who comes in and studies all of it. And its goal, the accrediting body's goal, is to make sure we're doing a few things that are really important. One is that we meet the same standards as everybody else, so that you know that if you come to this college that you'll get an education that is as good, and we certainly hope far better than all of our other peers. So that's one of the big goals, to say, hey, we're following industry standards, we understand them, and we're growing. But the bigger picture of accreditation is to show that we are always evolving, that we are always looking to change. So each of these standards that they're looking at, kind of like a doctor looks at you saying, hey, we hope that your heart was beating already, or you wouldn't have made it here. But we also want to make sure you're incredibly healthy in the future. So we look at all these different things to say, okay, well, how can you change to meet the market? How are you meeting your students? What's changed in the last 7 years? And did you as an institution change with it? So the cool thing about accreditation is it's really looking at us from a large picture perspective to say, hey, we should always be getting better. And that, do we document all the different ways that we get better? So from my perspective, that was what entranced me about the job, was to go, oh, that would be so cool to see all the different ways that an institution like CEI is growing and changing, and what are they doing? Because sometimes it seems like very hard to see all the pieces from your one perspective. where this would give me a wide range. And the cool thing about my job is it's actually designed that I make all that apparent to everyone. So that if I do the job well, not only did I see it and did the accrediting body see what cool things we're doing, but anybody who comes to our campus or to our website or speaks to people could actually see all those things too. So I actually like all that part.
So here's the thing that's interesting and maybe the most misunderstood part of accreditation. In a lot of realms, you would think that the accreditation body would say, here are the measures of success. And they come in with their checklist and check these things off. Do you have a library? Do you verify a student has completed all of the classes before a degree is granted? But it actually doesn't work that way. What it does is each institution sets those parameters within larger parameters, of course, but we really set our approach, our set of measurables and deliverables, and then it's the job of the accreditors, the visitors, the evaluators, to see if we did what we promised.
Yeah, it's a fascinating process. That's why, again, like just like what you just said, it's not a checklist, which is actually kind of what I thought it might be when I picked the handbook up.
Exactly.
I thought, okay, we're going to see, did we do the things and check the things? But it really is an educational process as much as our students go through to say it is just the things to go, what do you think makes an excellent this? Okay, and how are you doing it? And then not just how, but how are you looking to make sure you actually got to the goals? Like, did you equitably teach all the students that you thought you did? Or did you have a budget that really reflected your priorities? And it's a check to go, okay, did you do that? And now how are you going to make sure you do it again? Or if you didn't quite do it, how do you change it? And the nice thing about the process itself is that it's supposed to be us evolving. And so we don't have to be perfect at everything. We just have to notice where things are imperfect and be working towards them.
Yeah, so part of this is we disclose areas we think are weak and actually work on those. So I've been at this for quite a while, and I don't know what it's been, maybe 8 years, but early in the accreditation experience I had, it was always about inputs. So the accreditors would look, how many books do you have in the library? What is the what do your classrooms look like? What kind of infrastructure do you have? What are the qualifications of faculty? So those are all inputs. And I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, there was a complete shift to outputs. So now we are attempting to demonstrate what the result of the college would be. So our students different because of the work that we've done. And we've got to demonstrate that in accreditation.
Right. And that part is, like you just said, the whole field changed, but the accreditation standards themselves did a radical change. They shifted from 142 to like 47, and all of them aimed at saying, hey, we want less specifics about like how many books there are, and we want a larger picture of how are you proving that your students got all the goals that they wanted. And that's been a fascinating journey with people to talk through how do we show that, and much more useful, I think, to the community, to our students and our faculty to do it that way.
So you've been working with some of the leadership right now as we think about accreditation, and I'm not sure when a good time. One of the things I'd like you to talk a little bit about is a participatory governance model. I think you've laid out a very nice format for that. So maybe we could get that to pop up. But why don't you just talk a little bit about what this concept is?
Okay, so CEI has a participatory governance model, which is what the picture will show. And essentially it says that the Board of Trustees is authorized to make all the decisions for the college, but then it delegates that down through this participatory governance in order to get all of the things actually done. So you can kind of see it. We're going to make hopefully a much prettier version sometime soon. But that we start with the power of the Board of Trustees, which comes from the community itself. And then the board chair delegates to the president, who then uses the entire campus and all the brains across it in order to participate in creating a governing structure that does all of the marvelous things that we need it to. So we start with the President's Advisory Council, which holds all the power of all the big institutions. Then we move to an Executive Council, and then all of them, the Senate, Faculty Senate, Staff Senate, Academic Standards Committee, Student Senate, other committees, independent channels, all feed back to all those people to say, hey, we have great ideas about how to change the campus. Or we see problems, we could fix this, or all those things move back and forth so that the whole group on campus gets to change how our campus evolves.
So, and partially this is a decision-making model as well. So it's good practice, but it is something that the evaluators would look at. I mean, we do it because it's good practice, but it's also reviewed. But the point would be that it's a two-way conversation. It's not like the trustees and I are really smart, and then messages go out to departments, and it doesn't work that way. No. And talk a little bit about, well, we have Faculty Senate as a source of input, and Staff Senate, and Academic Standards, and Student Senate. So there's a variety of departments, functions that literally could give us input.
And one of the things that the campus may not know quite yet, but that the President's Advisory Council actually voted that one of their goals for the year would be to strengthen all those channels, and that we would make the participatory side of our governance more apparent and more vibrant and more engaging across campus. Largely realizing that in our first few years, we kind of rushed at full speed to get everything done and all the organizations built. Now they're all built. We have enough energy to put into them to make sure that we're moving the information back and forth better. So know that that is one of the strategic goals of CEI's campus, is to make those all a little stronger and a little more involved. So for those of you who might not be participating in them yet, you're going to get some invitations to participate more thoroughly, including if you're in the community. The community is also going to get more invitations to participate on campus, because we really want to take all these pieces of feedback and show how we, not show, but decide how we want to grow. That all our stakeholders, students, community, and all the people who work at CEI work together to make the next stage of our evolution, that we make the plan together. And so as we look at accreditation as a big picture, their goal is to see, are we evolving? And one of the requirements is, did we ask the people involved, how would you like to evolve? So that, as you look at this graphic, that's one of the ways that we express that, is how all those ideas move back and forth from all the brains.
So you hosted a breakout session at In-Service. Why don't you just spend a moment on that?
So I hosted an in-service that was entitled the Idea Lab, because we're going to launch an idea called the Idea Lab, as you might guess, that is going to help set the stage for us to create our institutional priorities, shape good questions, pick good research, and make sure that all the things that we are doing have all the best brains thinking about it. So the Idea Lab is going to become a venue for people to come. It'll have probably a set of stable committee members who are interested both in governance and in the trends in education and the trends across all of the different things. So we're looking for the entrepreneurs of CEI, essentially. So if this sounds like you as you listen today, reach out to me. But we're going to take those, and then we're also going to invite other people to drop in to say, hey, how do you just use your ideas and your imagination? How should we be growing? Like, where do you want to see us go? And that it'll be a place where we really can just do some free form investigations of what the world has to offer, and see how we could bring those ideas back to CEI and let them grow. So it'll be a place to nurture them, really.
So you ultimately then will bring ideas through maybe executive council or president's advisory committee and say, we've talked about this, we think these are good ideas. They could be anywhere from student recruitment. We talk about esports, so engaging students, student life.
Right.
One of the areas I want you to talk about, because this is important, and it's kind of the gold standard in some realms in accreditation, and it's hard for colleges to do this, but it's tying budget to outcomes, and that's an area where we'll be exploring some ideas. So maybe talk for a moment about that.
Well, every good idea needs money. And
Yes.
Perhaps that's probably the thing I've most learned as an entrepreneur is that no matter what you wish to do in the world, you have to find a way to fund it. And that people don't work for free and shouldn't. And that those things all need to, your budget should show your priorities. People should be able to see where you spent your money and see, does it match the priorities of what you have for the institution? And so as we look at it, the ways to kind of tie those together are to set clearer priorities and saying, hey, we will put budget behind them, and that we will give the people who institute these ideas enough means to put them into practice, experiment with them, and see them all the way through till we get some data at the end. And that takes budgetary discretion and thought and planning. So as we create all these things, we're also looking at how the budget should change to reflect it, and to see where, what should be prioritized and what isn't is based on where we want to end up as an institution. So it has some pretty big implications. Most people don't think of that as accreditation as very powerful in that kind of way, but as you look at it from a budgeting perspective, it can make a really big difference. And the accrediting body sets a lot of our priorities for where we should be focused. So some of them we can change, and some of them we just get to pick the specific avenues exactly of how we get there. And it's always worth being in on that conversation. So I hope as people, just to take this one step further, we are going to push lots of different ways for people to give their input across campus. And I hope people kind of see it as a way that they can impact the process itself, but also they impact the budget, which most people do care about a lot, even if they're not as impressed by the abstract concepts.
Sure. So they will be seeing some invitations go out, and at a level, we would say that one of our values is to be an innovative campus.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
What does that mean? I mean, that could be any number of things, and the Idea Lab could help us, whether it's in teaching and learning or a variety of things. So what should we be thinking of? If we call ourselves an innovative college, what should we be thinking of? And we probably should fund it.
You probably should fund it. Yeah,
and
you should probably fund it. And that's what a lot of the different schools who said, hey, innovation is our priority. You can see it in our priority because you can look at 5% of our budget is, or some percentage, everyone kind of at different ones, but they could show in their budget an earmark for innovative programs each year. And they set up a structure of competitions for people to put their innovative ideas out there and say, okay, you have an idea, you're willing to work for it. Okay, we'll give you the funding to try it. And they always did what all of the good research does, which says, hey, an idea is great. You have to be able to prove that the idea made the world better. So the ideas don't always have to succeed. You may not make the world better. It may be exactly the same. Sometimes you even make things a little worse. But what does matter is that we are testing it to see, did we make progress? Because we want to see where we can replicate. So that was the ideas of most of the structures that innovated with the budget. They're like, hey, you submit an idea, put in a plan, show us how you'll measure it, and then they funded the ideas that they thought would best move forward the campus. And that this campus is looking to see how we could structure something like that.
And sometimes you look at institutions with best practice, and one that you and I both have been impressed with is Edmonds in Washington. And you've taken some ideas from Edmonds.
Yeah, they have a stellar set of just really clear guidelines of all the good things. How do you improve in the good ways? And then they set out a bunch of clear metrics that say, hey, we're following it with some data to make sure that we're actually doing the things. So we can change them if they don't work, and we can replicate them. And there are a lot of good peers. We're trying to borrow from as many researchers as we can.
So, Amy, we are running right up against our time. Is there anything that you want to bring up in this area of accreditation? You want to tee up for any of our faculty or staff?
Well, here's a problem for you all to chew on. That one of them is we want to reach out to our community stakeholders. We want people who aren't on this campus yet to be able to help us shape the campus, because even just to find out why they aren't on here yet. So if anyone has great ideas about how to reach out to our community stakeholders, that's my next big thing we're chewing on. For the rest of it, if you see ways to improve this campus, I want you to know that from accreditation point of view, we obviously care, but really it's the administration that is around you that really deeply cares about it. And they've already invested a lot of resources to help build that. So if you see ways to make things better, volunteer them, and you'll definitely get invitations to do so. And just know that as we work through this next year is a large accreditation year for us. We have a large report that will be due in March of next year, and then another one in October past there. So you'll be hearing from me about it a lot, and just know that it's all things that just show we're looking to show off all the good things that you're doing. So I will need your help for sure.
Absolutely. So as you know, we like to end this with our guest giving some thoughts or sage advice when it comes to leadership. So Amy, what sage advice do you have?
My first would be take every good opportunity, everyone. Even if you don't think you can be excellent at it, especially if you don't think you can be excellent at it, take them all. You never know where they may lead. And most of my good things were not really so much planned as I just dove on things. The other one is just to seek to be, my life motto is to seek discomfort. Like anytime I feel like I know everything about something means I am done with that experience and I need to move to a place where I am uncomfortable and I'm learning all the time. And if I have those, I'm happy. If I have weird, random opportunities, I'm happy. If I have a lot of unknowns, I'm happy. So the more curious I am, the more happy I am in this world. So those are my two favorite pieces. Seek discomfort and take it.
It does reflect the way you are. And again, that isn't like a lot of people. A lot of people like comfort. So, but it's important, as we are emerging as a new institution, and I think highly respected both in locally with our local employers and partners, and equally respected with our legislators. The governor's office certainly knows a lot about that. So those are all values that I think are important. And many of our faculty and staff are like that. Maybe that's what draws them here.
Yeah, it's a great, you have a great group.
We absolutely do. There's no question about that. So Amy, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us. I'm really glad that our viewers could get to know you, and it's having a nice pitch for what's coming up in accreditation that you'll be asking for input.
Definitely, yeah. Everyone gear up. I'm coming. But thank you very much for this opportunity, Rick. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, of course. So to our viewers, thank you so much for spending time with us. We get a lot of good comments and feedback for this. We are ending up with a lot of interesting people. I kind of imagined when we started this, it would be during COVID, probably almost 9 months ago, that kind of did the first one and thought it would run its course. But there are a lot of interesting people that make up the college, and this is a great way to highlight them. So I want to encourage you to come back next Friday at noon. So have a great week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.